we'll go ahead and get started with the next iteration of this app that we're building for CRUD students. So where we left it off is we have seed data, and we can now add a student. And so this is the third video in that series. If you want to watch those first two videos first, make sure you're at the same point here. And so we can create, and now we're going to do read. And if you think about read, you know, really what that is a search. And so we're going to be able to search for students. Now it's pretty simple when you've only got 10 students, but you know, at a decent sized school you might have thousands of students, and so you might want to search for students by their name or maybe when they graduated. You know, there's a bunch of things you could search by, but we'll just include names and the graduation year. And you might say, wait a minute, we don't have a graduation year. So you can kind of go up in the list and you can see, well, we need to add a graduation year property to our students so that we can then search for it. And ultimately we'll be able to select it from a drop-down list. And so we'll get to see how that works in React. And then kind of quickly yesterday after the video, I didn't like when you kind of went into this mobile view that the images were by default 100% width of the cards that they were in. So I did two things to kind of get their images, you know, not huge and get them centered. So the first thing I did was in my CSS, in my index.css, I kind of set a max width on my images to 300 pixels, and you can obviously change that number, whatever suits you there. And then I added on the image tag itself, MX Auto. And so if you go back earlier in the semester, we learned MX Auto is used to center content. You throw that on the image tag, and that's going to center it in the card that it's in. And then I just added the text center bootstrap class to kind of get the first name, last name, and email down the center as well. Okay, so that's the only changes I've made, a couple small changes. And so moving into this, there's quite a bit of code in this one. And so, you know, to kind of start with the easy one, the bootstrap classes in CSS, that's easy. Add the graduation year property, that's fairly straightforward as well. Now this also changes a little bit when it comes to adding a student. We might, you know, all of our new students should be able to add the year. So that's something to keep in mind. But, you know, at least for our seed data, we'll say grad year. And so some of them will say graduate in 2000. Kind of throw in who really cares about what year it is. Just something like this is pretty consistent, so we get, you know, 2000 through 2004 graduation years, and presumably we can print out student.grad year and refresh and save students, and there you go, there's your grad year for our seed data. So then we had another component called add student, and we need to have a hook for that. So and we've got our columns here, 2, 2, 2, 2. Maybe we'll do 2, and that'll just free up div. On change set grad year, So I whipped that together pretty fast, so I would expect it to break. But now you can kind of see Bob Marley b@marley.com. Okay, so we're cooking here with Bob Marley. Now the year's not showing up, so let's double check the year. Input type text. Set grad year. Now of course we need to change the object that we're sending to include the grad year. So our object, even though we set a grad year, we need to add that grad year colon grad year. So that will now add student. Let's go back and look at the add student function and see if there's anything in add student about a year. There's not. So now let's refresh. Okay. Now we're doing good. And we've got a grad year now so that we can search by the year. And we'll see how we work that. So when you think about solving this problem about searching for a student, there's already a all students hook that, like, initially when I solved this problem, my initial thought was to modify this all students hook with a subset of students. And so all students would be essentially filtered down to a smaller group of students. But then you kind of lose access to all students. What I mean by that is, you know, if you take a big group of data and filter it down to a smaller group of data, then, you know, then resetting the data back to all students, you lose that ability. So it makes sense to have another hook, which will be all your students filtered down into search results. And so we'll create a new hook that does that. Comma. Okay. So that way you've got your seed data that's kind of there in all students. And when you add a new student, you add it to all students. And then you can also display your search results, which will be kind of a separate array of objects. So you keep all the students in one array, and then just the search results in a separate array. And again, that kind of solves the problem of like, okay, well, maybe I search for Bob, and I don't want all students to be filtered down to Bob. I want all my students still there. So then, you know, if I'm no longer searching for Bob, it goes back to showing me all the students. Then, so that's this particular hook will be a filtered version of all students. But then, you know, a filter, you know, what are you searching for? And so we're going to make another hook called keywords. And, you know, you think of this like you plug in your keywords into a Google search box. These are the one or many words that will be used in your search. And so, you know, you could go to Amazon and search for Nike basketball, and those are 2 keywords. And on Amazon, you're going to get, you know, Nike basketballs that are first, but then you're also probably going to get Nike shorts, and you're probably also going to get Reebok basketballs, right? And in that scenario, you have a kind of a search that does additive. In other words, you're adding the 2 different keywords together, and then you sort by relevance. And so the kind of search that we're going to do is a keyword search that is additive in nature, and that it'll, you know, if I search for my first name and Bob's first name, it'll return both myself and Bob. Okay, so these are the 2 new hooks that we're going to use. Then the next problem is here. You notice here I'm using allstudents.map, and so on my page I'm showing all my students. And keep in mind that we're setting this on this set all students right here when we click this button. But then, you know, you come across this problem that you got to think about, and it's like, okay, well, here I'm displaying all students, but now I'm going to start filtering this. And when I filter, my filter is search results. And so it's like, well, which one do you display? And so do you display both? Is there some sort of conditional statement that you run? Which could be the case. How I solved this is I initialized my search results to be the same seed data. So when the page loads, I'm going to initialize search results to this array student. And then when they click a button, I'm going to refine that down to a smaller list. So ultimately, kind of looking forward, I'm going to change this all students into my filtered search results. Okay, so this is something that I will do as I start writing this. So in that, since I just mentioned that, let me show you how I would go about solving that problem, where when the page loads, I want all students and search results to be seeded with this seed data. So I'll start by just making a function called save students. And in save students, I'll set all students. By the way, we're going to pass in an array of student objects. We're going to set all students to students, and we will set search results to students. And I kind of explained that logic why I'm going to do that, because ultimately I'm going to use search results to display my data. In fact, I can just do this now. Search results and search results.map. And so when I load the page, now notice here, instead of calling set all students, I'm going to call that method that I just wrote, which I called save students. Okay, so just kind of refactoring some code that I wrote. Now I call this method, and inside this method I pass it my array of student objects, and then I take that array and I set the two hooks at the same time. And to kind of go back in here, local host it. Because I thankfully didn't break anything, and now this list of students that we're seeing is filtered. And again, I think it's important to keep the filtered list separate from all students for reasons that I explained. And so we need to write the logic to basically get the input from the user and then apply that filter that I keep talking about into search results. And so the second function that I'm going to write here, we'll just call student search or search students. And so this will be the function where I write the logic to perform the search. And then of course we need the HTML to provide the user interface for the user to search. Now we could make another component, and maybe I'll refactor my code and do just that. But here's my add student. Yesterday I made a different component for that. For today, just for now, I'll put it in the same app.js. Div.class name is row, and I believe we added margin to the top. So we're going to start by adding the markup, which is going to provide the user interface to, basically search. And then I'll go up and I'll write some of the logic, and we'll kind of come back and forth. 4 columns, or excuse me, 3 columns. 1, 2, 3. And here you could see my 3 columns. And in the first, we'll provide a text box and a label. Label HTML4, text, keywords. So maybe we'll say search by first name, last name, or for this, we'll just say first name or last name. We'll come back to the grad year. And input type of text. Try to think of the Bootstrap class for text as form control, I believe. Placeholder. And this is input tag, so it's self-closing. On change, set keywords, EVT current target value. And the value attribute is equal to keywords. Okay, so that just kind of ties in our hook as we've learned to do by now. The event object, set keywords, and take a look-see. Search by first name or last name. And we are working. This second column, I will keep here for a select tag, and we'll come back to this select tag because we're going to use a drop-down list for the year. And for right now, I'll just put an option in here that says select year, value attribute to empty, select year. And so we'll come back to that, and then here's going to be our button. If it's a submit button, I mean, really, the submit button, you just have to prevent the default. So you could do a button type of button, button type of submit. I'm just going to do button type of button, so I don't have to. If this form data was actually going somewhere, you need to do button type of submit, but it's not. Class name of button, button primary. On click, we're going to make our own custom function. We're going to call that search students. So we kind of wired that up here. So here's search students. We click the button. We'll just say council.warn hi mom. Woo. Oh, I gotta finish my button. And finish my button. This says okay. So hi mom, and it's in a warning instead of a log. Okay, so we got our event handler wired up, and we're not gonna say hello to mom. Okay, so the user can, send one or many words, and we're going to make it, like I said earlier, kind of an additive search algorithm. So let's go up to our search students, and let's make an array of keywords. Keyword array. We're going to start it with empty. And we're going to use the hook, because keep in mind, every time they change what's in that text box, it's updating this keywords string. So this is a keyword string, and we're just going to break that up into an array of words. The way we're going to do that is with a JavaScript method called split. And so we're going to use a little if statement. If the keywords exist, and if there are keywords, then we're going to set the keywords array equal to the keywords hook dot to lowercase. The reason we do that is if the user types in all caps, we're going to convert that to all lowercase. And then we're going to compare that to something that's converted to all lowercase. So you take what the user types to lowercase versus your data set to lowercase. You got to lowercase both sides. And then we're going to split all the keywords at the space. And so basically every time our keywords has a space in it, we're going to add another keyword to our array. So if they put in 2 words, it'll be sub-0 and sub-1. So this keywords array, if there were 2 words, would have 2 subscripts. Here now is the logic for performing the search. We say if the keyword array length has anything in it, is greater than 0, we need to apply our filter. Now, thankfully in JavaScript, there is a filter function. We haven't studied the filter function, but I can explain it as I go. We'll create a variable called search results equals all of our students dot filter. Now, the way filter works is it's going to loop or iterate through all of the objects inside of all students and check against a condition. And if the condition is true, it returns that student. If it's false, it rejects the student or does not return the student. And so inside of this filter, we're going to look at each student, and for each student, we're going to go ahead and loop through our keywords array. Now, to loop through an array is a for of, right? So there's for in, you use for in to loop through objects, for of to loop through an array. Keywords array. So we're looping through keywords array and extracting 1 word at a time. And if the student first name, 2 lowercase, again, you got to lowercase both sides. This is our data set. So you lowercase the data set and you lowercase what the user types. Dot includes the word, the first word in our keywords array the first time through. So again, so if the student's first name includes the first word that the user types, or student.last name, 2 lowercase, includes the word. So if either of those conditions exist, we return true for that student. If you finish looping through all of the words and none of the words are included, if the first name, by the way, this is a partial search, right? So if the user's first name is Bobby and they search for Bob, Bobby does include Bob, so that would return true. So this is a partial search as well. So there's your logic for returning each individual student. However, at the end of this for loop, if you don't return true for that particular student, then you need to return false. And then close the curly there, close the filter, and ultimately this is filtering down all students using this search logic into a variable called search results. What are we going to do with search results? Well, we're going to populate this hook. So after, still inside of my outer if statement here, so after here, we're going to set search results to this constant search results. So this will apply the filter that we just wrote into this hook, And again, when you load the page, search results, there's no filter. We kind of basically seeded search results with the same data. Then we're using all students to filter that down into a subset of students called search results, setting that hook. Now, I also have an else statement here, and I'll kind of explain why I wrote this else statement. Set search results to all students. And this says, hey, you know, if there are keywords, let's filter down our students. Otherwise, if the field is blank, let's set search results to all students and kind of reseed our data to the full set of students. So really, this else statement is there if they use, you know, if they click the search button, maybe they apply a filter, like searching for Bob, and then, you know, they say, okay, well, let me see all the students again. They clear the filter and hit search. They should show you all the students again. So that's what that does. Okay, and again, kind of coming down here, I changed this to show search results instead of all students. So I did that. Now, one more thing. When I go to add a student, if I go to my add student method, let's see, add student was in app.js. So one of the benefits of breaking this down into multiple components is it would simplify this code. So now here's my add student method. I'm going to kind of bring this up here. Maybe here. So here's add student. Here I called set all students yesterday when I did the add student function. I'm going to change that to save students, because inside of save students, notice it sets all students here. And it also will include my new student in my search results. And so add student needed to update both of those hooks, basically, with the, you know, the new student. And so changed my add student function as well. And so let's see what's broke. Okay, so we can kind of see okay, so I searched for Lonnie. That search worked. If I clear that out, they all come back. That was that if-else statement that I was showing. If I search for Celine and would you pronounce that Wara? 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 I get both Celine and Wara. And so there's your additive search. And again, user interface is not the prettiest, but I'm really just focused on the functionality, and I can always clean it up. Yeah. Now, going great. Everything's working as anticipated. I can search by first or last name, but I don't have the year figured out yet. So let's add that. Now, you're going to notice here that if I apply a map on the students and I say, okay, for each year, make an option inside this drop-down list. I'm going to get repetitive years. I'm going to get a bunch of 2001s, 2002s, 2003s, 2004s. And so really what you want is to look at your data set and return unique values, or you could say distinct values. And there is no way kind of built into JavaScript to return on a data set, return unique values. But there is a library that is out there called Lodash. And so Lodash does have a way to look at a data set and sort the data and return unique values. And so thankfully in React, I can show you here under node modules, Lodash is already included in the node modules. So we just have to import it. So so here's Lodash. And so let's add import up at the top. And the import statement, this is our variable, we get to name this. And so the convention for importing Lodash is to use an underscore for your variable name from Lodash. So this underscore, we're going to use this underscore to map our students, but it provides unique values. So it's going to be a similar mapping to what we used here. Here's our map where we mapped each student, and for each student we made a card. We're gonna look at the grad year property, and for each unique grad year, we're gonna map an option. So let's go to, here's our option, and let's write a little bit of JavaScript here using this Lodash, and I'll explain it as I write it. So the syntax for this, here's our underscore, and we're going to map all students. Now, before we just said all students dot map. This is a Lodash map, so it's not the map that works on arrays. This is Lodash's version of that map, so it looks a little bit different. So on this map, we're going to map each student object, and we're going to say we want the grad year for each student, student.grad year. Okay, so we're going to map where each student, we're going to look at the grad year property, and we want this to be in ascending order, so we're going to sort it. So again, this is a sort feature built into Lodash. And we want unique values, so we don't get repetitive values. And on those, for each one of those unique grad years, we're going to map a year to an HTML option tag. And so for each year, we're going to return an option. And in that option, we're going to have the key, year, value, year, and it displays the year in the dropdown. Keep in mind this value attribute, it's just an HTML attribute. So we're mapping each option has a key. Again, you go back a couple videos, I explained that key attribute. We put a value that says the year, and we say the year. There's one last thing here. There's one last, you actually have to add a dot value. So you map this HTML for each year. So that's a whole lot of code to get this to work, to get this.
That one line in particular, that looks.
Yeah, this one line is pretty wicked.
Madness.
This one line's pretty wicked because you got multiple map functions, and you know, we map down each grad year, but then we got to sort them and make them unique, and then for each year, we're mapping each year into an option. So this is how to get into your object, and then you get into that property and map that property. So, all right. So now we got 2000, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is all students. Now keep in mind when we add a new student, if we go up to our add student will get updated students, which passes updated students to save students updates all students and search results. So adding a new student should also allow us to add a new year. So if I say and I say 2005, there's Bob Marley, and there's 2005. And we are cooking, so now we just got to get this filter to work, because right now we can search by first or last name, but we actually don't have this filter. But thankfully, that's not really too hard, because we take that same search logic and we just add we add a few things. So here's our keywords array, and we say if there are keywords, then let's split that into a keywords array. Now we'll say let's go ahead and create a hook for the year. So we'll call this grad year. Set grad year. Now, you know, keep your code dry. I don't like this because grad year was here and it's here. There might be a way so that I'm not repeating this hook across multiple. And let's hope that I'll take a look at cleaning that up. But for now, back in our option tag, the value attribute is going to be the grad year hook. And we need an on change. No. Gosh. Keep that to that. Okay. On the select tag, the value is grad year, and on change set grad year EVT current target value, And so what are we doing here? Okay, so whenever we change the dropdown, it's going to set the grad year variable. Why do we need to set the grad year variable? Well, I want to use grad year. I want to use this variable in my search. So I'll say if grad year exists, that means they've changed the drop-down list, and I'll push keywords array dot push grad year. So I'll add the year to my keywords array. Now, this is an int, right? So since this is a string array, I'll just add a toString, grad year toString. I guess your array doesn't have to have one data type, but so if the grad year exists, if there's data in this variable, then we're going to push that onto our keywords. Now we just need to also include that in our if statement. Or student dot grad year triple equals the grad year that's provided. No. Equals word. Because you're gonna loop through. There we go. And since it's triple equals, it seems backwards. I'm going to parse it back to an int. So here we took the int into a string, and then here we get it back to an int. That way we're comparing int against int, and the triple equals should work. It makes me feel like I should just take that out and not have to worry about parsing it back and forth. But let's fire this up. So now we are including that grad year. So the first thing was to get it into our keywords array. And then the next thing was to check it in our loop of each word in a keyword array and localhost. Okay. Now if I select just the 2000s, there we go. We get it all working. And we add a new student, graduates in 2005. And now we filter by 2005. And we found a breaking point. So let's take a look at this bug. I'm gonna pause it real quick and troubleshoot. Hopefully it doesn't take long. Found the bug. Okay, so inserted a breakpoint, looping through my breakpoint. I get to this condition where if my Bob Marley, his grad year is a string 2005, triple equals 2005, the word 2005. So it's basically comparing a string against what I parsed into an int. And so, you know, we just got to get that string into an int, or don't triple equals, we could double equals. And that problem should be solved. And so,
Double equals be fine there.
grad year, let's parse int, sorry.
Say, since they're only using the year to search, it doesn't matter if it's an int or a string.
Nah, it shouldn't really matter. But here, when we get grad year, let's parse int, and there we go. Now let's find something else that's broke. It's always the attitude you got to take. Let's find what's broke.
If it ain't broke, it's not working.
Yeah. If it's not broke, you're not pushing yourself, right? Let's see. Bob Marley, 2005. There we go. Problem solved. Now, I did find one more warning that I got, and let me show when I got this warning. And so this is going into the, as soon as I start typing in this grad year, it says warning, a component is changing an uncontrolled input to be controlled. This is likely caused by the value changing from an undefined to a defined, which should not happen. So it's just not liking. So it makes me want to look at my graduation year control, which is right here, input type of text. Value is grad year. And so this is pretty standard. Label for class name, text grad year, on change, event. And I didn't like this anyways, because again, I had this repetitive hook. So I'm not sure at the moment what's causing that warning, not an error, but a warning. So I'll do some research and see if I can't find the solution there. But for now, we can search by first name, last name, and grad year. So if I add Bob Marley, and then let's just say I search by 2005 and search is working. Just got a warning that I need to troubleshoot, and I will address that in the next video.